Okay. The next thing, so in the last video, we had that security file open that's under collections, cats server. From here, we need to, there's this next thing, which is define your security permissions here. So I'm going to explain what this is now. So last time we talked about publish and subscribe. Publish and subscribe, just as a quick refresher, does two things. The first one is that it keeps our client fast and snappy by not overwhelming it with data. The second thing it does is it lets us selectively control what sort of data the client can see so that we aren't accidentally publishing things to the client that, maybe private or confidential information we shouldn't be sharing. Now, security has to deal with who is allowed to change data. So publish and subscribe was about who can see data. But security is about who's allowed to change data. So just like publish and subscribe, there's a really easy way to turn this on and off. Just like we had auto-publish before, you can add insecure to your project. So Meteor add insecure. And what that does is, when you're in development mode, it lets anyone change any document on the database. So most of you guys are probably used to that. Now, we don't want to let anyone be able to change any sort of data in our app, right? Because, even if we don't have a UI built for it, someone could get in here and just start doing like Meteor let's say like cats dot remove. Then I'll take the ID of the current cat we're looking at. And then the cat's gone, right? So people could really screw up our app this way by just getting into the console and messing with stuff. So what we do is we create security permissions. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the insecure package now. Security permissions are exactly what they sound like. We are going to programmatically say who's allowed to insert, update, and remove. And one of the ways we can do, so there's a couple rules that we can use to do this. So normally if you Google about security rules with Meteor, like if we go to meteor.com and you go to the tutorial, security with methods, you'll see these, you'll see like a really complicated way to add this security. Thankfully, Max and I have built a nice, convenient little package for you guys to vastly simplify how you write this out. So, the first one would be, here's a good example. So you'll just start off by saying the name of the collection, which in this case is cats, and then you use this permit call. So here we're going to say cats.permit insert if they are logged in. So just like this comment says, they can only insert if they are a logged in user. Here we are saying they can only update if they are logged in and the document was created by them. So that's why we're saying if logged in, if created by user. They can update. Here's another one. They can update if they have the role of admin. Or they can remove if they were logged in and the document was created by them. Or they can also remove if they have the role of admin. So you'll notice right here, right off the bat, we've given the admin the ability to update, remove, and do, whatever he wants, right? Notice how there's no, cats.permit insert if has role admin. That's because they only have to be logged in to be able to create a new cat. So we don't need to create a special rule for the admin to do that. So typically each one of these things here is called a rule, right? So we are creating rules about who's allowed to change the data in our app. And here's why this is important. Even though we can control what sort of UI the user might see, maybe I can't see these buttons if I didn't create it. They can always still open up the console and run commands that could screw up our data. They could also, if you remember this picture from the previous video, there's actually, at some point all these bits are traveling over the network. It's largely obscured to you guys, but there's definitely a informational transfer that's occurring. Someone could actually directly hook into our web server, completely bypassing our client, and then try to pretend like it was inserting or removing or updating stuff on our database. And if we didn't have these rules, our server wouldn't know any better about whether or not that was a client that was trying to do it or someone else that has just connected to our server. So that's what's great about these rules, is that these rules are applied at this layer right here, so no one can get to our database and mess with stuff and circumvent the rules that we've created. So it adds security at a couple different levels. Now the syntax is a little goofy looking. It's like, you start with the name of the collection you want, then you say what's permitted. Then there's the type of action, right? Which can be insert, update, remove. Those are the 3 actions you can do on a collection. And then we have some different checks we can do. We can check if they're logged in. We can check if they created it. We can check if they have a certain role. These base options should be sufficient to get you guys started. So the good news here is that the generator has done most of the work for you. And unlike publish and subscribe, if you change your UI around a lot, you don't have to actually rewrite any of this stuff. Publish and subscribe, if you change your UI, you might have to write more subscribe calls in the correct places. However, with the security, if you just have, if you just come to this cat security.js file and just declare the rules that you need, those are just globally applied everywhere and they'll just work. So just to demonstrate this, so if I log out of my app, and now if I try to insert a new cat, actually I think I have one. Here we go. So let's say I try to insert a new cat, you'll notice right here we get insert failed, access denied. And that's because we created this rule that said they have to be logged in if they want to insert a cat. Now you could play around with this a little bit and you could turn insecure on. So if I do meteor add insecure, that will automatically remove all of our security rules so we can just change data willy-nilly to test things. I generally don't like to program with that on because I think that's kind of scary. And then when you go to remove it later on, it might cause all these bugs. I feel like it's better just to catch those security issues right off the bat. But so you'll see here now if I run cats.insert, oh, interesting. It actually still denied it. So, I'm kind of surprised about that. My guess is that the security code that this library we've created is still overriding insecure. So you know what? I wouldn't even play around with insecure. Just remove that package. It's not included by default in the Launchbox generators. Just something useful to know because you might see it around on the web. The biggest thing here is whenever you're creating a program, you should sit down for a second and ask yourself the following question. Who is allowed to insert, update, remove this collection? Is it admins only? Is it users? Who's allowed to update? Can anyone update something that's already been created? Or can only admins and the original creator update? Can only the original creator remove and delete stuff, right? So the question you're thinking is like, who is allowed to change this data? Who's allowed to insert, update, and remove on this collection. Whereas with publish and subscribe, you're asking who's allowed, maybe the better way to say it would be like, when should someone see this data, right? Well, they should see a cat document when they're on the Find One Cat page, right? Whereas the security is more of a global question saying who's allowed to change stuff on the collection. Now, again, I'm guessing these 5 rules right here where anyone can insert something, but they have to be logged in. They can update things if they created them or if they're the admin, and they can remove things if they created them or if they're the admin. I'm guessing that works for the majority of your guys' situations. There is some additional stuff you could do. You could say, they can only update certain fields. That's an option. You can check for multiple roles if you wanted to, if you needed that sort of logic. But I'm guessing for the most part that these 5 rules here will cover all your use cases. So the last 2 things we've covered, publish and subscribe and security, as I've said before, are probably the most advanced components of Meteor, at least from a really important things that you don't want to screw up perspective. And I'll say that again. Try not to screw this up. That's like a stupid thing to say, right? Because you obviously don't want to screw up anything in your app. But out of all the things to stress about, if you have a UI bug, okay, that sucks, but you can patch that easily, right? If you have a serious security flaw and your app's getting popular, that could really be something bad. Because I don't know, for those of you that have come to class, you'll remember me talking about how the worst thing that can happen in a production app is that something happens to your database and your data. That's the worst possible thing that can happen. So this is something you definitely want to think about. And your checklist before you go to push your app to production, the 2 things that you have to check or think through before you go to production is, okay, what are my publish and subscribes doing? Mostly, am I not publishing too much data to the client to either slow it down, and am I not publishing, sensitive data that I shouldn't be, right? And then from a security perspective, saying, okay, I'm got to make sure I don't have any rules created that let people really mess up my app.